This conference will now be recorded.
Hi. So today's session we will see some examples on services and connectors. So basically in the last two examples also we worked on some integration connections like database, external database connection. File listeners also come under some integration concepts only. And today we'll see some other examples regarding these integrations. So basically communication between application to application or application to external databases, we can call it as integrations or some web service concept. Okay. So mainly when working on the applications, okay, most of the applications I'm saying, or most of the scenarios this work would apply, and it is not mandatory to go. Generally, when you're working on any integrations, so you will be creating sometimes under organization integration layer, sometimes under division level implementation layer, and sometimes under work class group integration layer also will be creating. So for your application, it will be alpha if and int come under organized integration layer, and division means alpha if and alpha if and int. So this come under so implementation integration layer, because in data layers also we have used two types. Organization data layer we created some tables, and in division level data layer also we created some tables. So like that, when working on integrations also we will be creating at organization level will be creating, and in division level also will be creating. And there is other thing called there is one more thing called class group level integration layer. That is under your work layer we can also create one integration class, but at the time we need to change the direct parent. We have to change how to change actually. See, mostly when working on connectors we'll go for this layer. Okay. When working on this one, very rarely, this one also sometimes we'll go for connectors only, but very rarely we'll be using. When working on services we'll go for class group level integration layer we'll be using most of the cases. Okay. And that is not mandatory to go for this structure only. So whatever requirement given to you, accordingly you have to create. But most of the applications, it will be the structure will be like this. Okay. And whenever we work on applications, either it will be consumer or provider. Consumer means so we are going to consume some service. For that case, we have to use connector rules. We have to use. So all the integration widgets are built in, right? So in order to consume a service, we have to use connector rules. In order to provide a service as a provider, we have to create service rules. We have to create. Okay? So like that, from Pega to other from Pega application, any other applications want to connect means. So we will be working on services. Other services if you want to use in your Pega means Pega in your Pega application means we have to go for connectors. Okay? And coming to the consuming, while consuming services, what kind of service they give, based on that only we have to use the connector. Suppose if it is a SOAP service means we cannot use REST connector. If it is a REST service, we cannot use SOAP connector. So the service type and connector type must be always same. And that you will not decide based on the provider service you have to go. Which connector to use and all we have to decide. Okay. And whenever all these services will be defined in different technologies, it may be defined in different categories. And here, in order to communicate and understand the language, here Pega is one technology. Suppose if the service is defined in some other technology, so how the Pega will understand, or if service is defined in Pega, and how other technologies will understand. For example, let's take a .NET service is there if you want to use in your Pega application. So, but .NET is a different language and Pega is a different kind of thing. But how both will communicate means this integration concepts and all. So we'll be having some protocols. So first, not protocols, some common languages will be there like XML and all. So that is going to communicate, even though the technologies are different. So they will be having a common language will be there where both can understand, both the technologies can understand. So in order to understand the technologies between the application, that is in order to understand the request and response between the applications, so they will be communicating between using some common languages called, so we can call them as formats, okay, application language formats we can say. So that is like JSON, XML, EJB file, JCS, like that. These are some common things which we will be using. So mostly XML, JSON, and some cases file and EJB mostly we'll be using. So I'll be showing JSON and XML both. I'll be showing. Already we have seen the file. So I'll be showing JSON and XML also. I'll be showing. So here protocols will be there again. Mainly most of the cases in 90% of the applications will be using SOAP and REST. Okay, in old versions means they'll be using some other protocols like MQ and all. But in the latest versions, we are using only SOAP and REST is the most secure protocols which we are going to use. So in order to communicate this one, so between application to Pega to other applications when you are sending any request. See, I told you within internal database also if you want to communicate, clipboard is the main interface like that. When communicating with other external applications or external databases also, the data will first map to clipboard and from clipboard only it will go to the other application. Same way, vice versa. Any response is sent also from other application to Pega. So first it will go to the clipboard and from there to the application it will understand. So here, in order to communicate between the applications, some we can say some mapping rules will be there. So integration mapping rules like parse XML and XML stream. So these are nothing but, so if you are working on services means for request we have to use parse XML. This one you have to remember. If you are sending a response means when working on services, you have to use XML stream. For connectors it is reverse. For requesting connectors, we have to go for XML stream, and for response, we have to use parse XML. Okay? So that will be easy to remember after you work on one or two exercises. And then what this XML stream will do means it will convert data from clipboard to XML format. It will convert. Okay, so parse XML to clipboard format it will convert. So like that, whenever we work on services, so for request we have to use this parse XML, for response XML stream, and when working on connectors, for request we have to use XML stream, and for response we have to use parse XML. So both will both are mapping rules. So these things also in the mapping rules we are going to map the properties. What are the request properties and what are the response properties we have to assign them. Okay. So here like first example we are going to do on SOAP. So SOAP protocol we are going to use. And SOAP means here input format will be in the form of WSDL format, web service description language, full form is. So always all the SOAP services will be in the WSDL format only will be there. Okay, any input URL if you get, so it will be giving a URL to you. So what is the URL given to you? So the input format will be in the web service description format if it is a SOAP service. And if you generate any new SOAP service also, the output will be that is for the SOAP service, whatever we configure. So the URL will be created also in the form of digital. Always SOAP will be having digital. REST means HTTP format it will be there. So SOAP means digital, REST means HTTP format. So first we'll work on SOAP example. And when working on services, many rules will be creating like multiple classes we have to configure. Here I'm going to show the very generally wizards will be there if you want to work on integration. So first I'm going to show the manual way so that you can easily understand the wizard. Okay. So we'll be creating multiple classes because when working on integrations, so multiple subclasses and all we have to configure. For request and response properties, separate classes we have to create. And for working on services, abstract class we have to define all the rules. So for that one main abstract class and under that we have to map all the rules. That is under that we need to define all the rules. So multiple classes, request and response properties and page properties, then service activity, service package is already there. So already in our application package I created, you can reuse that one. And mapping rules. For request in service means we have to use parse XML. For response, we have to use XML stream. Okay. So all these things I will be creating under the integration work class group integration layer I will be creating. Okay. So let's see package service package we used in the last example in file business. So package is nothing but in your application when multiple services, so you can use one common package because package is nothing but collection of different services created under one access group. So in your application, in your implementation application, if you create multiple services also, we can use the same package we can use because so package is collection of all the services which are created under one access group. So yesterday we created one service, right? Okay. So same service package we can use in today's topic also we can use. And I'll take a simple example to understand this concept, like a win validation. Okay, here I'm going to do service and connector both I'm going to create in one application only. Okay, but in the real time, whatever service we created, other applications will be reusing. Okay, but here in the personal we cannot access any free services from that. So there will not be any license to access free services. So here in old versions we can access some free services which are there, but in the present versions, we have if want to work on one example means we have to generate our own service and then we have to use it in the connectors we have to use. So both I will show services and connectors both I will show. So example is when win is given, input is given for the win. See vehicle number is just suppose example take a Indian RTA service like a road transport authority. So if your vehicle number is given, you can get your vehicle details. What is the registration date? What is the when the registration will end? What is the tax? All the details you are going to get. Okay? Here I'm not using all the properties. What are the properties available? I'm going to use them. Okay? In the real time, maybe the property may change. The input and response properties may change. But example here I'm taking is if I give any win, if anybody uses this service, if they give the win number, so based on that, they can get the response properties. For the response properties, they can get the details. Like in the response also, I'm going to include win, brand, model, and make here. Give me. So this is the request property, and in the response, I want to fetch the details for these properties. So this win is the request, and in the response also including win as the property. So any input is given by the user for the property. A response should display for all these properties. That is the requirement. But this one we are doing using the service. So if anybody uses the service, if they give the input and based on that they can get the response. So we are not directly doing through service. We are going to communicate all these things. So here I'm going to create a repository for the win. So first of all, create a data table. Because as of now, for testing purpose, I'm going to add the repository and one or two sample records I'll give because after the service is used in the application, so whether it is working or not, we need to test. I'm giving some name. I'm giving a win table. So click on advanced settings. So create it organization level. That is remove the division class and submit. So the same fields I'm adding in this. Then set the source for the win property. Okay, these four fields I'm taking. So go to records. So set win as the class key. Submit. Manually add one or two records for testing purpose. Okay, just I'm giving one or two records. Yeah, close this. So now whenever we define services, mostly we'll be creating at organization level integration, sorry, or class group integration layer. That is another work layer, we can also add integration classes. So how to add, I'll show you. So right click on this class. So there is a next step. So go to sysadmin category. Here steps will be more, multiple classes will be creating. So give a name as INT. Any name you can do, not only INT, but for easy understanding, I'm giving a name as INT. Any name, not only this one, any name you can give. Click on open. Then the integration classes will be concrete and does not belong to class group. So when you open this, you'll get as abstract by default, but change the type of class. So in your system, what is the version you're using? Selecting the drop down. Does not belongs to. And one more thing we have to change is generally, if you create work classes, this it come under belongs to. We are creating integration classes under the work layer. So it come under concrete does not belongs to. And direct parent we have to change to. So direct parent will be your class group will be there. Change the direct parent to int hyphen. So direct parent we have to change to int hyphen. It will be your work class group name will be there by default. So when you are creating integration class, so direct parent must be int hyphen. And save this. Okay, but when you are creating classes manually, other setting will be there in the history tab. We have to give description usage. Anything, just to give any name, both in the description usage, then only we can save the class. Otherwise, we'll get some error. So go to history, add some description usage. Now, here in this integration class, now we need to create a two subclasses first of all. Totally three subclasses we require. So first to create, refresh this one. Okay, you can see integration class is created. And under this, we need to create some subclasses. Here, why two subclasses means for request, we have to create a separate class. And for response properties, we have to create a separate class. So because directly from data class to abstract class, we cannot load the properties. So that's the reason first we need to create a two subclasses under the main class. And from there, we have to load the properties to the abstract class. What is abstract class and how to create, I will show you. So first of all, under this, create two classes. One is for request and one is for the response. So give a name. So these are like that multiple steps you'll be adding. So go to this admin. So here give class name as win request. Any name you can give, but give the names whatever I'm giving, so it will be easy for you to work. So I'm giving the name as win request. This one concrete does not belong to class group. Then we are creating under the integration class, so no need to change the direct parent. Go to history, give some description usage. Save this. So like that, create one more subclass. Again, right click on ink, sysadmin, give a name. And this is also same. See, why we need to create two subclasses means because under this integration now, see, service is what is service when you create in your Pega. So other applications can use the service. So if anybody want to reuse the service, all the rules we have to again define at the abstract class we have to define. So when you want to define everything in the abstract class, so here directly from table to abstract class, you cannot reuse the properties like a page properties and all we have to create. From table to abstract class directly we cannot load. So that's the reason first we need to create two subclasses. And again from integration classes we can load the properties to the abstract class we can load. So now under win request and win response classes, once refresh this, so create a page property first of all referring to win table class, referring to win request and so here referring to win table class, create one page property in win request and create one page property in the win response class. Expand this one. So under this, first I'm creating one property, page property I'm creating. So click on property. Give a name. So it's a single page property and give the name of the win table class. And save this. Similarly, in the win response class also create one page property referring to win table under the win response also. So give a name. Sorry. I open a class, not class. It's a property name. Okay, I need to change the screenshot. So give a name. So click on open. save this one. Now, what are all the main rules? We create all the main rules like package, general package is already there, so no need to create again. Or if you want to create, we can create a package with a different name because it should be there in the abstract class. So like that also we can add. So now, next step is, so we need to again create one abstract class under the integration class. The reason is all the reusable rules we have to define under abstract classes. So go to sysadmin. So under the integration class, we need to define this. Given a name. So abstract class means already when you open the rule, you will get the type as abstract only. Only give the version, that's it. And give the description usage. Now you can close this and refresh this Explorer. And now the first rule I'm going to create is again, see from the request class, create a page property. See, that is in the Win service class, we need to create two page properties again. So loading from Win request and Win response class, because to the Win service directly from table, we cannot load the properties. That's the reason. So two subclasses will be defining, and under that we'll load the request and response properties. Now from these two classes, we need to create a page property in the Win service. That is the next step. So create two page properties and load from the Win request and Win response. Now another abstract class we are creating. Okay, give a name. And give the name of your table class. So this time we'll give the Win request, not the Win table. So this time we have to give the name as Win request. So which is integration class, because under that we have the property. Give the name as Win request. So same way, one more page property, we're referring to Win response class. Again under the service, Win service class, and then save this. Now we can create the mapping rules. So for services, when you're working, I told you for request means you have to use parse XML, and for response means you have to XML stream. So for request means one property is there, and response four properties are there. Now under the Win service, so create the mapping rules. For request, we have to create parse XML. So if you go to integration mapping, So click on this one parse XML and map your request property. So give some name for this. See, root element name is nothing but your page property name which is created in the Win service. We have to give the same name. Then open this. So we need to map the, you'll be having like elements you'll be having. So we have only one property is right. So only one element you have to map. Okay, open this. Okay, so highlight this when request page. So under this you have to add one element. Okay, so so here we have only one property. So one element is sufficient. Request property always it will be one. Okay, Win is the request property. So highlight this and click on add element. Then you will be getting this element added. So double click on this. So we have to map the property. Double click on this new. So when you double click on the new, you have like a node option, context page, property. Three options will be there. So both all the three options you have to configure. So when you click on new, so give these three parameters: node name, context page, and property name. So node name is type it manually. Context page you'll get in the drop down. So when request to page dot when request. We created the page property set, that is context page. And your property, then it will load the table class. You have to select your property, that is the request type. Then click on OK. This is done. Then click on OK again. Then you can save this parse XML. Okay, so then, but response you have to add multiple properties. That will be somewhat more steps will be there for response mapping. Request means only one property. Now we have to use XML stream. So in order to map response, we have to create XML stream. So that is also mapping rule. Right click on that. Integration mapping, XML stream. Okay, give a name. Give it as a win response page. So XML type give map from or something. Anything you can do and give me as map from. So click on open. So here, first of all, sub attribute, and then under that we have to create these response elements. Okay, so one main attribute will be there. Under that one sub element, and under that four sub elements we have to configure. Because under this, first of all, once we open this, under this add one sub element, click on this win response page and click on add element. Then double click on this and just give a node name. This just so once you open this, so after adding the element, so double click on this. So you'll be having all the options, but we have to only mention the node name only we have to mention. Give it as a win response. only add node name, give less, will response, and then click on OK. Now under this we have to add all the sub elements like we have four response properties are there. So we have to add now highlight this one each time and click on add element. Again highlight win response. So then add element. Okay. So again highlight win response add them because all the response properties will be there in the win response. So add four sub elements under win response. Make sure it should be in the same order. Okay, not in a again don't add highlight new and click on don't click on add element. It will be adding a nested element again. Not nested, all the elements will be there in the win response only. So one by one open each and map all the response properties. The first one is so win context page is win response page dot win response. Then map your property. Then click on OK. So like that you can map the remaining properties. Then other two properties. Then click on OK. Now one more setting is there. Go to the main element. So main element means win response page. In this one node name space will be there. You can add that one. Double click on this. Here you will be having node tab. So add this one. Same thing, node name only we have to give it in the node name space. So that's it. Save this one. Okay. So once it is done, you can close the tab. Next, so already we have a package. If you want, you can reuse that one, or if you want to create again, let's see. We'll create once again. So service package, if you want to create, it is a integration resource, a service package. But we cannot give the same name. At least we have to give a different name. And once we open, we have to mention access group and authentication. You have to remove. remove authentication. Save this. Now we are going to create a, just to keep this rule again. Finally, once service is created, we have to come back to the package and click on refresh methods. Some deployment result will be created in the package only. Now we have to create service soap. So under the Win service, go to integration services, service soap. So give any name. Give some package. That is not the package you created. Just to give the send customer class. You can give any. Any name you can give. And once you open, we have to mention the primary class. So primary class is nothing but where you define the service, that is a primary class. So which is nothing but Win service. I mention the primary class. Actually, this page name, any service if you open, it will get the same page. You can't update that. Update this page name. Any name you can do again. Now we have map request and response. So using parsecs maximum stream, we have gone for the request type. So go to request type and in the request parameters, we have to map those details. XML, literal, give the name, when request a page, give it manually only. Then in the description, if you want to copy same, you can copy. And map to you will get in the dropdown. XML parse route and map to key also you will get in the dropdown. That is win request dot win request page you will be getting. Same way, I go to response tab. These steps, everything you will get in the dropdown only. First, we will go to the request parameters. So we have to map all these details. Then go to response tab to fill the response parameters. So type it manually. So first XML literal, when response page, so we get map from XML stream, and we get the page name, when response page. Then we have to go to service tab. We need to define one service activity we have to define. See the service activity without defining service activity, we cannot save your service. Okay. So we have to compulsory mention the service activity. So here, so first of all, give any name and open the activity rule. Okay, under the service activity, so give some name, any name you can give, and open that one. See the main business logic we are going to define under this activity. From which table it is fetching, all those details we are going to define in this activity. So click on open next to the name. Okay, once we open this, so click on create and open. So we need to define parameters and Bayesian classes. So first I'm giving some parameter. So type we can go for string only. Then define Bayesian classes. Your table name, from which table you are fetching. Give some page name. So in the step, first step we can add page name. So then second step add property set method. See here input we are going to give, take through parameters it is going to take. So don't give any step page and add the input parameter. Okay, first one is page name. Then second one is add the parameter and give the request page name. So yeah, request page name we have to give. Expand this. Okay, and in the right side we have to give the request page. So click on dot option, win request page dot win request dot win. Okay. So when any input is given, so by the user, so input is what are the input given by the user, it is going to check it in the first through service request page, it is going to check. Okay. Then we thought is obj open. See here it is like a fetching single record. Give table name. Then property names. And the input value we are going to map it from the parameter again, because what are the parameter given by the user, based on it, it is going to take the value. Then next step is again we have to use property set again, because we need to map the response we have to map. Okay. So in order to map the response, again we have to use property set. Generally, when you get any results from the table, I told you it will go to the clipboard page. So from clipboard now we need to map to the response page we have to map. So use property set and don't define any step page. See now the results will be under win results page, and from there we have to map it to the integration response page we have to map. So all the response properties will be available under win results dot win. Like that, first map the value where in the clipboard this results will be there in the clipboard. From clipboard we need to map it to the UI form. If not UI form, through service it is going to map. UI form in connector activity I'll show you. It will be something called connector activity. There we have to map the UI details. But here we don't define UI details. Only service request and response properties only will map here. In connector activity we have to map the UI details. And here in the click on dot option, win response page dot win response dot win. Similarly, map the remaining fields. Now save this activity. Now, already activity name is given in service. So directly can save your service. Already name is there in the service room. Save your service now. Because without mentioning activity, we cannot save service. So in service room, activity is must compulsory mandatory. Now, go to package. Once service is saved, go to service package. It is going to generate the deployment results. That is now whatever service we generated. So for that, it is going to create a URL is going to generate. Only thing is we have to click on refresh methods. There is a green line is there, a rated portion. Here you can see one button. Click on refresh methods and some deployment result will be, that is some URL will be created. So this is the output for the service. And anybody want to consume this service, any technology want to consume the service, they will be using this URL. But now today we'll use the service in our application only. And remember, this URL will be different in your application and different in the application. So don't use the same URL which is copied in the document. In your application, whatever it is generated, because what are the names you give, based on that, some names in the URL will change. So don't copy the same URL. In your system, whatever URL generated, copy that one in your connector widget. Okay. Now next step is we have to use the connectors. That is, so service is generated, right? So if anybody consume this service, what happens is, if anybody give the request for bill, response will be loaded automatically in their UI design, whatever they configure. So now how to consume that service we are going to use. That is how to consume the service URL we are going to learn now. But remember this URL as it is, if you copy from my document, it will not work in your application. You have to copy the document which is created in your application. Okay. Once you generate the service, from service package you can get that URL. So now we have to use connect soap. Okay. So connect soap we can directly use widget we can use. So here automatically all the rules will be generated. One activity connector activity also will be created. Any customization if want to do, only in connector activity we have to update, because the other rules are not integration rules, but activity connector activity will be created in the work layer. Okay, any rules generated in the work layer we can customize, but we define what are the rules generated in the integration class we cannot customize. We have to reuse them. Now, in order to consume this service, so we will be creating this connector soap connect soap under organization integration layer will be creating. It will let connectors when you are using, mostly will be using it organization integration layer, so that in all the application they can use that data. Okay. The advantage of using an organization level means any suppose multiple implementation applications are there, in all the application they can reuse the data. Sometimes you can also create a division level, particularly if they give the requirement. Else you can directly create it organization level, so that in all implementation application they can use that data. Now, in order to open that connector widget, so go to configure menu. Here I'll be using one widget. There are two widgets will be there. One is create soap integration direct widget is there, and create connector and metadata widget is there. So direct integration I'll show for rest option. So this time I'm using connector and metadata I'm using. So click on this widget. See, when you're using this setup, just update few details here. So in the metadata type, select visual file and change the rule set name. See, your latest version is you will get in the drop down, select that one. And then we have to change the base class. If you see here, work class group integration layer it is showing, but change that to organization integration class. change this to alpha F90 and see here all the rules whatever configured from the service, that is whatever things we are loading from the service, it will be saved under this parent class or organization icon INT. But one activity will be created in the application which is going to create under your connector activity will be created under work layer because this is editable. But these are no need to edit these rules. Integration class no need to edit them. But any rules created in the organization, sorry, work class group layer, we can edit them. Connector activities compulsory we have to customize. Sometimes we'll change only for which response properties you want to load the data. Sometimes we can restrict them. That is, it is not mandatory for loading the data for every property we have in the database. Sometimes we can restrict so that we can update the connector activity according to our requirement. That's why this will be created in the work layer. Just move to the remaining steps. In the remaining steps, no need to change anything. Just proceed with the button, next button, and then we can proceed. And in the next steps, we have to copy the URL, whatever URL generated in the service. That is the deployment URL. So copy that in the. So first we'll get as a plain user. But I told you right, when you are copying this URL, so copy from your application, whatever it is generated. So click on next button and proceed with all the remaining steps. No need to change anything. Just we have to select the method name. So when one service is created, one method will be created. One thing is we have to select the service method we have to select. Wait, still it is loading. Okay, here select the port number and port name, service name and port number. Here select your method. So click on next. Here mapping rules will be automatically created. See, last time I created parse XML and XML stream. Okay, but for connector names, for request we have to use XML stream and for response parse XML. So both will be automatically created. Okay, just click on next. And then click on finish button. So everything it is going to generate under except one activity, everything will be saved under alpha F90. If you want to open and check, you can check, but we cannot modify or edit them. So just it will be reused in the background. So click on finish and close this tab. Okay, next thing is you can open your activity which is generated in the work layer. See here actually connect soap, service soap and activity. All the three will be created with same name automatically. If it is not showing means refresh Explorer, then you can see the name. So get win details is the name we have given for service. So same name connect soap will be created and connector activity also will be created with the same name get win details. So open this connector activity. So here I'm going to here some steps are configured using data transform method, but I'll be using property set method. Regularly we'll be using property set. I'll be using property set here in this scenario. So just to change the request and response, just I'm adding the request properties and response properties. So connect soap is already configured. Page remove optional, you can block that step. Show page not mandatory, remove it. And apply data transform and these two steps I'm going to delete. And instead of that, I'm going to use property set methods I'm going to use. So first click on checkout and these three steps no need to remove, just block the page remove. And some parameters will be automatically created, you can remove, those are not required. Now in the steps tab, just add two additional steps. Once you open this, just update the steps whatever I did. So just to keep these three steps, page new, connect step and page remove, and remove the steps in the parameters. And then now you can go to the steps tab. So after the page new, we need to add request. Now here, see in the previous activity, the mapping is done from table and integration class. Now the mapping we are going to do in this connector. See, remember service activity when we create always mapping will be done from a data table and integration classes. Excuse me. See, in service activity, always mapping will be between integration classes and data classes will happen. If it is a connector activity means integration classes and UI properties, that is work class properties mapping will happen. So now in this connector activity, we need to map see integration once the service is, we are using the consuming the service, right? So when you consume the service, request is nothing but win property. So response will load for all the properties. So here we have to map integration to work class mapping we have to do. Okay. So here in the property set method, so map the request and one default page will be created for your integration class, that is pivot and data page, that is user page. Under that response will be available. And here in this integration property we have to map get win details win request page dot win. Then coming to the response, actually UI page I'm going to take the personal vehicle page I'm going to take. So accordingly map the response. So primary dot personal vehicle page dot win. I'm taking this as a from this UI page I'm going to give the input. Now after this add the response after connect soap. So first add the request property. Then after the connect soap add the response parameters. Now after the connect soap add a new step. Again property set. Expand this. So response properties here. First of all, in the right side map the integration properties. So which is nothing but win response page result dot win response dot win. Same way map remaining properties. Here mapping integration to UI. Now UI to which UI you want to display the response. So here again I want to match the response to the same personal vehicle page, but I'll update some changes in the UI design. As of now, just map this thing. Personal vehicle. So map these properties. Now you can save this activity. So like that in the connector activity, always connect soap will automatically generate this method which contains the service rule and all. And only thing is we have to change the request and response. We have to change. Now save this one and check in. Now go back to personal vehicle section and just update some property. We have to set it as read-only field. Go to the personal vehicle section now. And this activity also I'm going to call it in the vehicle section only. Under some button settings I'm going to call this one. Either in input property also you can call, or else you can add a button control, and in the button settings you can call. Open this section. No. So save your activity. So call activity in the vehicle section under the button settings. See in this particular activity, just update, that is add one more win property, because in request and response both will have the win property. Now after the changes and modification, just add copy paste this property and add this button control after win. So give a label for button. And set these results fields as read only. Each field we have to set separately. All the response fields set it as read only. So go to presentation, edit option, select read only always. So do this for all the response fields. Now save this one. Okay, meanwhile, just save it under it, because again we need to call the activity. So activity, call it in the button settings. Double click on button. So set event and action. So event type is click. So action name is display refresh. And connector activity you can call here in submit. So Okay, then now save this one and check in and execute your insurance flow. When we connect activities, you can also call it in flow. But when we have to call means inputting one page and response in different page if want to display means then we have to call using integrator shape. There is one integrator shape is there. So connector activities if want to call in flow means we have to use advanced shape called integrator. So in that settings you have to call. When input you are giving in one page and output you want to display in a different page means then you have to call it in the flow. Input and output both in one page only for the display. Either call it in the input property settings you can call or in the button settings also you can call. Now, uh, you can check in this. Then the next step is you can execute your insurance flow. And verify whether the service is fetching the data or not. What are the service we use in this application? So whether it is working or not, just verify. And here execute the screen flow steps. No need to execute the process flow steps. So execute the screen flow steps. Click on them. Now go to action dropper. So open screen flow steps. And go to indicator form. So give an input here. So in the table I have given some records, right? If you give the input matching input, it is going to get the response. If you click on button, wait, it will take some time in the solution. First time it will take some time. So it is going to get the response through service and display in the UI. So any run consume the service does not have direct access to database. Through service it will connect to the database and from there it is going to whatever request given. So service will check it in the service database and from there it is going to fetch and display the data. Wait, first time it will take some time for everyone in the past section. Okay. So what are the data I have in the service table? So it is going to fetch and display. If you change the input parameters are used, right? So if input is updated, it will update the output also, response also will update. Okay. So like that, we can consume. Maybe your request and response properties may be different, but procedure will be common. Okay. Only thing is your request and response will be different. Example, anybody want to do the scenarios? So SOAP services maybe we will be using mostly. The rest also I'll show it in the next session. I'll show you. Okay? But rest service I will not create. Service and wizard will be there. I'll show the wizard option tomorrow. Or even all these things which I created, you can also define using wizard also. Like that, I'll show tomorrow how to use the wizard to create services, and then I'll show the REST connector. I'll show you. Okay? Then I'll discuss in the next session. We'll see tomorrow. Okay.